That's right. It's a big show today, guys. We've got the CEO of the SDF, Denelle Dixon. I'm so excited. It's so much to cover. I mean, I hope I can squeeze everything in. Denelle Dixon's in the building. Hold on tight, everybody. This is so massive.
The international payments juggernaut is now partnering with the Stellar Development Foundation to enable seamless conversion between cash and crypto. Joining us now is Alex Holmes, Chairman and CEO of Moneygram, and Denelle Dixon, CEO and Executive Director of the Stellar Development Foundation.
Which is really melding the online, the blockchain world with what MoneyGram has taken years and years to build, which is their agent network, which is pretty phenomenal. And these on-ramps and these off-ramps for the blockchain space, it's a pretty remarkable thing for us to be talking about, to be able to move forward. And we're really excited about this. It's transformational for this industry.
Out in on chain, and you're trading in different currencies, oftentimes parking a stable coin is a great way to provide some stability as you think about your next trades. I think one of the biggest difficulties of being on chain is getting fiat off. And so for us, this partnership is extremely unique in the sense that anyone on the Stellar network will be able to instantly basically provide funds in and funds out through the MoneyGram system, and trading that through basically the exchange that Circle has with USDC. Simultaneously, in the background, we'll be doing a settlement process with Circle with USDC as well. And we're very good about it. We're a regulated money transfer. They're a regulated exchange. And we also have a partner, United Texas Bank, in the flow as well to help facilitate the flow of the fiat currency through the settlement process. So it's extremely exciting. I think it's very interesting, and certainly we're going to be proactive with our regulators and our banks, as we always are. And we think there's a huge opportunity to really do something very, very different.
Hey, everybody. I am about to bring up to the stage Denelle Dixon. How's it going, Denelle? How are you?
Hi. I'm very well. How are you doing?
Doing well. Very excited to have you on the show. I sat back and was just thinking about this show, preparing everything, and just realizing how massive of a year it's been. I mean, it's been an incredible year. I remember the last time I spoke with you, you told me that you are always planning ahead. Take us back to 2020 and, so I guess some of the mindset within the team preparing for what was to come in 2021.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is part of what we're doing with respect to with MoneyGram. And first of all, thank you for having me. This is really fun to be here. What we're doing with MoneyGram has been something in the works for a long time. I mean, what we've always been focused on is the anchor network and really establishing a really strong and robust network that is global, because that's how we actually make this happen, right? That's how you can get the fiat on and the crypto on, and the fiat off and the crypto off. And that's the whole notion of being able to do this. And so MoneyGram was always a piece of the puzzle that we really wanted to bring to the table. And so it took time and took lots of conversations. And but I think that this is it actually worked out from a time standpoint for the best, because we are ready for this now, where we might not have been in 2020 or 2019. And I think the reason why I say that is because we have a really robust anchor network now that is truly global, that can be leveraged. We have USDC on Stellar, as well as other really strong stable coins. And so I think now we're ready for the execution. So what we needed to do, what I always think about is, I like to lay the bricks. Like, you have to put the bricks to create the wall, and you have to be thinking about what the foundation is that you need to be able to make the wall strong. And that's what we've tried to do over the last 2 years. And so I think that was in our mindset in 2020, and certainly what we've been able to execute on, I think, exceptionally well in 2021.
Y'all listening in, man. Gosh, first of all, you just made me so excited, and this is what I think so many people don't understand is the amount of vision that you possess, the team possesses. That I hope you guys are listening out there. I mean, she said that MoneyGram was always in the works. It's always been a piece of the puzzle. It's been something that just worked out in timing. But you guys I've really enjoyed watching the Stellar Development Foundation grow over the years. And it's so remarkable with your involvement, Denelle. I just can't say enough that it's exciting. Even as a community member, it's exciting to follow what you guys are doing, to track the successes, and yes, to see those pieces of the puzzle slowly come together. There's so much to go in on that announcement. But before we go back into that any further, let's go back to some of the other, I feel, major involvements that the Stellar Development has been involved with. Because as you mentioned, there's been tons of pieces. One of them has been the growth I've seen with your involvement in the development community. For instance, you had to hack the system, a 10-week virtual blockchain with Encode Club. You had DeFi Summer, Minority Programmers Association, Hack Africa. Just recently, you teamed up with Visa and the host of Techstars Startup Weekend Blockchain in Latin America. Just wanted to I guess get some insight on that part of the strategy and maybe some of the motivation behind these.
Yeah, well, I mean, the network and the SDF is really nothing without the developers and the ecosystem. And bringing more developers to the ecosystem is one of the most important things that we can do to support and to be able to deliver on promises that we make to the ecosystem. And so I think I'm a really strong believer in really starting local and building local. And what I mean by that is leveraging developers all over the world. So not developers that just happen to reside in the area that we are in. So I think that that's really the most important thing. We have to be out there pushing, making the network strong and sustainable enough that developers all over the world care about it. And these are just some of those ways to be able to do it. We are so lucky that we have such a talented ecosystem already, but we need to constantly bring new life into that ecosystem so that we can have the new ideas and new developments. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that as an open source project that's focused on global development, that we need to really have that outreach to developers all over. And so that's really the reason why we do these hackathons, which I think are so fascinating. The things that people come up with are super interesting from our standpoint. And sometimes we get stuck in our own little bubble, right? So when you have people who are now looking at and assessing the ecosystem and assessing what the network can do, it's super cool to see what they come up with. And that's how innovation starts.
Yeah, it's exciting. Shout out to Tyler, a part of your team. He's got Stellar Quest that's going on right now. Very exciting. I learn a lot going through those exercises, and I know it's inspired a lot of developers. I get to talk to people in the community who are excited about what you guys are doing, but maybe don't feel like they're, maybe some of the most advanced developers. But, even things like Stellar Quest really opens up those doors. And to be honest, Stellar, it's very easy to build on, very easy to adapt. And so it's one of those networks where, unlike some other chains out there where you have to really almost be like a rocket scientist, I love the way that Stellar allows someone like maybe like myself or others that are more business focused and not necessarily on the tech side, but, you're able to adapt, but also, allow so many layers to see people like Marcus and other people in the community really take it to the next level. So it's really great to see. Really great to see.
Well, I mean, and that's part of this, right? I mean, you say that Stellar Quest might not be some of the most advanced developers, but the issue for me isn't whether the developer is advanced. First of all, the network has to be simple enough to be able to make it work for anyone. The documentation has to be strong enough that people can actually just take it and run with it. And then we always have to be thinking about, can we develop tools that are going to make it even easier? And that's one of the things that the team is constantly looking at. We've spent a lot of this year really trying to figure out how to productize a lot of the pieces of the network to make it so that it's a lot easier for people to develop on it. And that's, again, that's really focusing on the promises that we make and how we really want the network to be simple. But it's not about whether you're the most senior or developed developer. It really is about how easy the network can be to be able to leverage, because that's how you make things grow. You don't make things grow by requiring it be all the developers that are of the senior category on it, right? I mean, that would be sort of insane.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shout out to everybody in the community that's involved here. Uh, Can I ask you a question, Dana? I have to ask you this. So I mentioned one of the events recently was you guys teamed up with Visa for the Techstar startup, and I've seen Visa kind of floating around in either other various Stellar projects or. I'm just curious. Is there anything you can share, maybe that might be, or may not be going on there?
Oh, well, I think Visa's doing a really great job on its own about really getting out there and just really embracing blockchain generally. And so obviously we have relationships with Visa. I know Kai very well. And I think that getting us to the point where we can leverage both of these like really important partnerships to, I mean, really important companies to be able to build and grow with all the different folks on the network is sort of our goal. But it's Visa's goal. Like Visa really,
Nice.
really wants to be a part of it. So not just Stellar, but others. And I think it's really important to be able to embrace that. So there's nothing specific going on other than really, I think Visa is embracing blockchain and what blockchain can be able to deliver to its network as well.
Yep, and it says a lot when someone like that chooses to even associate with our community in the Stellar Development Foundation. Um, Going on a little bit further, so one thing that I've seen and really enjoyed has been the Stellar's involvement in Africa and really a hands-on role. And one thing I tell people, because I get DMs all the time and people always ask me about my thoughts about the Stellar Development Foundation and Stellar. One of the biggest advantages that doing these interviews has allowed me to do is grow relationships with people that are building on Stellar. And when you have personal relationships, you get to ask personal questions. And I tell you, matter of fact, let me show you a quick clip. I spoke, speaking with people in the community and just hearing the sincerity. Let me play this. This is from an organization you're very familiar with, the Cowrie Network. Let me just play a quick clip of what he said. Hold on. Share what your personal experience has been working with SDF.
Oh, it's been fantastic, Sam. They actually know this technology will have the most impact in places like Africa. And for instance, the West can get by without blockchain for now. Yeah, it's better it adds to them, but the impact it will have on our society here is immense. It's actually immense. We appreciated that they saw that, and they saw it early on, not when it was fashionable, not when you understand. Right. We saw it when it wasn't fashionable, when it was hard to come into Africa. They saw it, and
hey, wait, hold up, pause on that, man. I've thought that myself. It is really cool now to come to Africa, but I posted a couple times. They've been there since the ground level. Continue.
No, you're correct. Yeah, they were there from the beginning, and they were there when it was very hard.
That is, those are real words, and I've had the chance to talk with many others. I could probably fill with audio. But just to go back, just for those that are watching and listening now, in 2015, Stellar worked with Vumi, a foundation that spearheaded a number of projects leveraging mobile communications to improve their lives. This was in Africa back in 2015. Jed documented many times he spent over a month in Lagos back in 2016 to try to figure out some ideas and ways to anchor some partnerships. And we've seen a wide range of companies. Leaf Global, I interviewed that team many times and just so excited to see what they're doing. And Cowrie, who was just here, even this year, SDF really stepped in and helped out, investing over $750,000 into Cowrie, which is, for those who are not familiar, a Nigerian-based fintech facilitating crypto remittances. So I say all this to kind of maybe you can share some insight on the motivation and the vision that the Stellar Development Foundation has for Africa. Anything you could fill in there for us on that?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the most important things, and I'm going to steal what Jed has said, and this is one of the ways that Jed got me to be able to come here was, He wanted to have value and money moved the same as email. So as easy and simple as that. Where is that most important? That is most
Mm-hmm.
important in those regions that don't actually have the infrastructure in a connected way. Where is that most structured, that structure most like that? That's in Africa and also in Latin America. I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, in parts of Asia, like, these are parts of the world that are so important for us to be able to connect. Because we talk about this like bifurcated and fragmented global financial system, but the truth of the matter is there are many parts of cities and even parts of some of the countries in Africa where it's really hard to get to banks. And we
Wow.
take it for granted sometimes when we live in developed economies where we can actually get a bank down the street. Well, I mean, blockchain really helps to solve these problems for users there. And I also love the fact that there's so much hunger and desire to build and to grow and to think about solving these problems. I mentioned before that I think building local is really important. And why is that really important? It's because you know the problems that you, your family, your constituents, your friends down the street, your neighbors, you know the problems
Mm-hmm.
that they need to have solved. And we're hopeful that they can leverage Stellar to be able to do that. So I think it's just the real need that is in Africa to be able to create and to bridge the financial system that exists today, because it wasn't built for people in Africa. The truth of the matter is the global financial system wasn't built for many people in the United States. It was built for just a few people, not
Mm-hmm.
intentionally, but that's the way it worked out. And so when we think about it that way, like, this is exactly the place that we should be focused on. And I love it. And I love what's coming out of Africa. One of my favorite things is to look at all of these really awesome projects that are being built there and to see the different problems that, frankly, we probably wouldn't have touched on had we not had people who are local thinking about how they solve real problems for the users in their area. And that's what I think is super cool.
I would definitely agree. Definitely agree. It really is. It's amazing. Just to highlight, I guess a couple of things here as well. There were a couple different events that you guys recently did. There was the Hack Africa, which is another hackathon. FinTech Africa, the Stellar Ecosystem Panel, which was great. That was, I think, coincided with the DFS Labs
Yeah.
blockchain boot camp. Really great thing that you guys are doing. And it's great to see the development, as you mentioned, the growth coming out of Africa. This is awesome to really see. Um, Wanted to, um, I guess, go on to the CBDCs and stablecoins. You've always said that Stellar was created with CBDCs in mind. Matter of fact, I remember when it was first starting off. I mean, some of the first usage of the word stablecoins was around the Stellar ecosystem. I remember many others in crypto Twitter land, didn't even catch on to it. Um, so I'm curious to understand, I guess, why is it that you feel that Stellar was created with CBDCs in mind, and maybe some of the unique advantages that Stellar offers.
Yeah, so I think that it's CBDCs, but it's also asset issuance generally. And then the
Mm-hmm.
fact that certain of the countries that are focused on developing CBDCs, what they need are the ability to control. And so having built-in compliance tools is a really important part of what Stellar has to offer that I think is unique. But I mean, the fact that you can issue an asset on Stellar in a line of code, I know there's a lot more that goes into it after that. But the fact that you can do that demonstrates the simplicity and the openness to be able to create any kind of asset on Stellar. But the fiat-backed assets, and particularly CBDCs, are really interesting because they actually help to solve a lot of the problems with volatility. And
Mm-hmm.
CBDCs in particular could solve problems in different regions, depending on whether those regions actually want to be able to leverage their assets, their local fiat in a digital form outside their country, because I think that's the beauty of what a CBDC can offer, to be able to sort of bring their local currency to the world stage in a very simple way for it to be leveraged. So I think the compliance features, the speed, the fact that it's so inexpensive to be able to for developers to build and to be able to complete transactions on Stellar, these are all really important parts of why Stellar is really awesome for any kind of asset issuance, but particularly though for CBDCs, because CBDCs can be issued quickly, they can be issued efficiently, and hopefully once issued on Stellar, they can also be leveraged cross-chain. I mean, that's like my hope, to be able to have interoperability for things like CBDCs, but we already see that with USDC, for example. USDC is a perfect example of an asset that can go cross-chain. So I think that, it's the asset issuance part and the simplicity of the way that you can do that very simply on Stellar that makes it really uniquely suited for CBDCs.
Why is it that you feel the bridge from fiat to crypto it's so important for mainstream adoption in general?
Well, because I think that in order for you to be able to leverage the ecosystem, you right now, without those bridges, without an easy bridge like an MGI, for example, the MoneyGram relationship that we have, and using
Hmm.
their agent networks, you still need a bank account for the most part, or you need credit cards to be able to get onto the blockchain and to be able to do that. So first of all, that initial bridge, that initial on-ramp onto the blockchain is a really, really important step, because it makes it so that you truly can get to that financial inclusion, because so much of what happens is that people around the world don't get access to uh, savings accounts or checking accounts or even credit cards, because they can't sustain the minimum balance requirements. They have the fees. There are lots of
Oh
issues
yeah.
around that. So when you have that bridge, that you're able to leverage, when you can bring fiat onto the blockchain in a very simple form, that takes care of that, and it gives them access to all of these tools that these awesome developers have created on Stellar. So I think that first bridge is the most important one. And I think the rest of it is, this is what people are looking for. When you have the bridge from fiat to crypto, people are really looking to be able to leverage their fiat dollars in new and interesting ways. And I think that that's what's really important for us to be able to help to create as an ecosystem, and also help to make sure that the bridges exist so that users and businesses alike can, take advantage of what those circumstances can bring to them.
I know I personally can't wait. I know I've talked it publicly. I've been involved in real estate for over 16 years, and so I know a lot of my tenants. These are hardworking tenants, but because of the amount of money they get in from their hourly work, and the fees that we take for granted, the fees that a lot of these mainstream banks have.
Yeah.
They depend on MoneyGram, as an example. They depend on that service, but it's still a challenge. They got to drive physically and do all these different things. So, I mean, I for one am excited to see this transition happen. Um, one thing that I've definitely seen, Danelle, since you've been involved, is that you've always seemed to be at the right tables. I mean, yeah, World Bank, IMF, I mean, all the governmental leaders. I've seen you guys sitting there. What does that access, allow, right? What are, I would say, some of the key takeaways that, you're able to bring back to the Stellar Development Foundation and to the ecosystem, because you are privileged to have these relationships. Can you share a little bit insight on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the most important part about those relationships is the need to listen. And I think that so much of the time we often talk and tell people what we think they need to hear, instead of listen to what it is that they're actually experiencing in their business. So much with the World Bank, like projects we've done with them, they focus on the need to be able to get the assets that they need to get very quickly to the entities they need to get them to, in a way that they can actually monitor the distribution. So blockchain is like really special for that. And so I think that those are the key takeaways that we can get from these different organizations like the IMF and the World Bank and regulators all over the world, is what are the problems that you are facing, or that your constituents are facing in your work? And then we can see, is Stellar a source of a solution? And you have to be really good at listening instead of talking and trying to tell people what you think that they need to hear. And I think so much of that is lost in mainstream business, I just have to say. But I
Yeah.
think that when you're dealing with these entities that are really trying to solve problems, that is how we bring those problems. And then we don't just assume that we have a solution. That's the other part. You don't just want to make it so that, slap a blockchain label on it and make it so that it actually, oh, well, we'll make it work. We'll make the square peg round hole problem fit in there. You actually want to look to see, is this going to help you to solve any one of the problems that you've presented? And if it's not, you want to be really honest about it. And that's part of how you build that trust, how you build those relationships, how you make it so that you do get to be invited to these really interesting discussions around how to solve the world's problems in ways that are useful, leveraging technology that we're familiar with, but also maybe also indicating, no, this technology is actually not going to help solve that yet, but maybe we can help by doing X, Y, or Z. And I think that's what we are able to do when we have these relationships with these different entities.
Wow. I mean, what, because you see this conversation continue to happen. What would you say are some of the key, the common objectives that you've received from these different bodies of governments and organizations that maybe makes them hesitate on blockchain as a whole? What are some of the key things that you feel are their concerns?
Well, I think in the US, for example, and I think not just in the US, there are other regions where it's the same, but there's a concern around consumer protection. And I don't think that it's a real concern that's grounded in the technology, but I do think part of the challenge that we've come up against is the fact that we did talk about the technology as a large ecosystem. So like the whole blockchain ecosystem, we talked about the tech for so long that we forgot to talk about the use case and the problem solving. And so that's really what I've understood. And my key takeaway from a lot of these conversations is, what is it doing to solve the problems for them? And so getting around this consumer protection issue, and you talk to them and you realize that actually through blockchain, you can actually help to solve some of the concerns that they have around consumer protection generally. And that it's actually sometimes better on the blockchain side than it is on the traditional fiat side. But there's just an outright concern at the outset because we spent so much time talking about the tech. And also, like, honestly, a lot of these regulators and governments hear about the horror stories, people losing their keys, people not focused on like how they can actually, how much they should purchase of a certain type of asset, and that then they lose their shirt in that market. So these are the things they hear about, instead of actually saying, well, actually there's solutions to the fact that, there's custodial arrangements for not being able to maintain your own keys. If you want to choose to hold your keys, you can do so, and there are simple ways to be able to make that happen. So these are things that I think we've spent a lot of time trying to provide really in context conversation. And what I mean by that is not throwing all this language out in a really short period of time, but showing them with a demo, showing them like, this is how it can work. With Vibrant, for example, when you can have a non-custodial wallet that you actually that you can get key recovery in, because we've actually been able to do that. That's a really interesting thing to show to regulators when they want to be able to see how those kinds of things can happen. So I think consumer protection is one of them. I also think that just the fear of what that's going to do to their local currency if they allow any kind of cryptocurrency or stablecoin into their economy. And I think talking and understanding those conversations and listening to them is a really important part. Again, what use cases can these stablecoins solve for their constituents is the way that you have that conversation. So this is why I constantly say the way for us to be able to move forward and push really hard with respect to any kind of these new developments in the blockchain space is to focus on UX design, is to focus on the users, and it's to focus on solving their problems. And if we can show that, you're going to have a lot more momentum behind you to be able to move things forward.
Well said. Well said. If there's one thing I can add quickly here is that going back to a lot of people that I deal with, and talking to the senators and all these bodies that represent their constituents, is a lot of people, especially hardworking folks that live in paycheck to paycheck, something as simple as transaction finality, being able to send a payment and it gets reduced from your banking account and credited to the next is such a major flaw in our system, and such an advantage that something Stellar USDC can offer, in my opinion, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, because of a payment that's delayed in going through transaction, they end up going in the arrears, getting late, getting overdraft fees, and now they're in debt and unable to pay their future bills. So just some of these basic use cases, I think, as you just mentioned, are where the storyline should go. Since we last spoke, speaking on USDC launched on Stellar. What can you share about this relationship and its importance to having them join the network?
Well, I think it's a great organization. I have a lot of fondness for Jeremy Allaire, who's the CEO and the founder, one of the founders of it. I think we have a lot of commonality in terms of how we look at the this new world that we're in versus and compare that to the old days of the web and try to learn from our experience on the web when it was first starting to be able to make this space better, more interoperable, a lot of focus on openness. That's what I think we have, that sort of mentality, the two of us. So I really like that. I think bringing USDC to Stellar really just opened up the opportunity to have a strong stable coin that people can rely on when they're making payments. One of the things that's most important when you're making a payment is you want to know that the amount that you sent is the same as the amount that was received. And so stable coins do that. It's not just USDC, also it's all the stable coins that are issued on the network allow that kind of assurancy and that kind of people feeling good about what they're doing versus the volatility that you can happen if you use cryptocurrency. So I think USDC really just brought a lot of value to the network to be able to have relationships like MoneyGram, for example.
Hmm.
Without the stablecoin aspect of it, it would have been hard to be able to make this relationship work, particularly when you're dealing in payments and people sending payments to themselves or to their family. So I think that it just allows that kind of growth and stability and that maturity for a network that I think was like already very well established, but we needed to bring on a strong USDC US dollar token, and I think we were able to do that with USDC. That doesn't mean that there aren't other stable coins out there, even domestic US stable coins that could be leveraged on the network. It'd also be very important. It just means that it came at the right time for us. Again, 2021 I look at was this year of real growth. We've laid this really
Yeah,
strong foundation. We continued to do that this year, but we really needed to see growth, and I think the USDC stablecoin allowed that.
I love it. Shout out! I know my mom's watching. Hey, mom, how you doing? She just recently retired. She has a Stellar wallet,
Yay!
and she's utilizing it. We immigrated here to the States. My parents did, and so she's utilizing it. And if my mom can use it, so can anybody. Because I'm telling you right now, I mean, she used it without ease, no hesitation, no nothing. So yes, it does work, and it's very easy. You mentioned there's a lot of other stable coins, and as I mentioned, folks, there's so much that I'm grabbing her real quick here. But just to highlight some of the other things real quickly, you guys expanded in Latin America, over 3 million investment in Settle Network to support the growth of stablecoin exchange out there. We saw Germany, the oldest bank. I mean, I think 1754, Bankas Vanderheit. I know my friends would be happy I pronounced that, I think, correctly. One of the oldest banks, they launched a Euro stablecoin, was the first direct, that's correct, bank, stablecoin by bank on the Stellar network. And then recently, we saw stablecoin and VersaBank issued a Canadian stablecoin, the VCAD, becoming the first issued on a live Stellar network and first to be issued by a North American bank. I mean, this is great. Oh, and I'm not done. You guys, in addition, the Singapore, can't forget Singapore. We have BIT and SDF. You guys were selected as finalists for the Global CBDC Challenge. I mean, gosh, I mean, clearly what you guys have set up here is working. Um, you know, I, let me ask you this. Let's pick one of these. Let's say, were you? I know a lot of times these happen. You guys aren't even aware of it. Were you guys aware of the stable coin and VersaBank Canadian stablecoin at all, or is that kind of out of the blue?
Yeah, we were. We had been working with them, and I think that they're great partners. We actually just had them at Money 2020, and it was really fun to be able to have Stablecore there. I think that they have been they're really active, and I think they're going to be a really strong part of the ecosystem going forward. So I think what's most important about this is that it's never enough for me. Like we need to just
I love it.
continue to like grow and to build and to really push ourselves. And I think about our organization, we're about 100 strong now at the SDF. And I like to think of us as tiny but mighty because I think that we're just going to continue through all of the really awesome work that we get from the ecosystem partners that are all focused on creating and bringing more and more and more into Stellar. I think it makes it so that, collectively, as a group, we work together to really bring these awesome opportunities to the network. And I think having more stablecoins, really fleshing out and creating that global map of stablecoins all over the world that can be leveraged, again, it just really helps for what we want to accomplish, which is asset issuance, and payments, cross-border transactions, as well as remittances, businesses and consumers. That's what Stellar's good for. That's what all of this stuff goes to work for. That's what Protocol 18, and you focus on the AMMs. And why is that important? It's important because of liquidity. Why does liquidity matter? It's because we care about making sure that there's enough liquidity on the network to really help to solve these problems that we see with payments. And so it's all part of a larger story that all goes back to really what Jed and others and David really thought about at the outset, which is really trying to bridge the gaps that existed within the global financial system and to make it really simple and make money move as easy as emails. I mean, that's really what this goes to. So I love to see it, but as I said, it's never enough for me. We can't ever, like I have my brain works all night, and as do others on the team, and we can't keep up for everything that we want to do.
Wow. Man, Denelle is not here to play with y'all today. No, she is not. I tell you, man. No, it's great, and I think it's one of those things. Like I said, I've been so close to Stellar for so many years, and I've seen the growth. I've seen how the team, is laser focused. Yeah, you guys really truly work hard in every department. We talked about that. Real quick, I know that the Ukraine Ministry of the Digital Transformation agreed to develop virtual assets and to facilitate CBDCs and work out an infrastructure plan with the SDF, kind of helping along that. At a high level, of course, how's that partnership going? And B, how has the SDF been able to gain knowledge? Because I think that, a lot of times it's gaining knowledge through these experiences, regardless of what happens on the other end. But yeah, how was all that kind of work together? Love to get some insight and feedback on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember one of the things I just said before, which is the listening part. Such an honor to meet President Zelensky, such an honor to work with the folks in the Ukrainian government that are focused on really creating a much more integrated and simple global, and be part of the global infrastructure in terms of finance and payments. And that's really what they're focused on. I mean, if you ask him, President Zelensky tells you he wants to have a cash-free economy because he wants it to be digital assets that he's focused on within the next couple of years. So if you listen and hear what they want and hear why they want that and why they want to solve these problems, which is our responsibility as part of their partner in this and trying to help them to figure out their strategy, that's how we can actually improve upon the lives of the folks, not just in Ukraine, but in the Ukraine specifically for this project. So it's been a ton of fun. The teams have spent a lot of time together. We've learned a lot. I think you learn every region is different in terms of what they're focused on. To be totally honest, like every government is different in terms of where the central bank sits and who has the ability to be able to issue the assets and control the issuance of the assets. And I think that that's a really important part of how these structures work too. But I think we'll continue to work with them and continue to learn from them and hopefully support what they need from an asset strategy. And really, hopefully, we can bring as much value to them as, frankly, I'd say that they bring to us. Because anytime that you're engaging at that deep of a level with an organization, whether it be a government or another company, you learn so much. You learn more about what you can do better as an organization and how you can provide your services better. And you learn more about what the ecosystem needs and what the ecosystem can improve and can also bring to that party. So again, it's all about the listening and sharing what we can do together collectively to make lives better all over the world. So that's been a ton of fun. And it was great to be able to spend the time that we did when the president was here. But I also just loved the ability that the fact that our different folks at our company and also different folks at different levels of the government spend a ton of time really trying to, I just want to say, like, make the Ukraine a better place for Ukrainians, which is awesome.
That is awesome. That is so. You guys have been working real hard, head down. I know it's always so quiet over there at SDF. I can't get anything out of anybody. So since you're here, how far away do you think maybe, Denelle, we might hear some formal update as to what exactly you guys have been working on?
Around what part? What are you?
Around Ukraine. Around
Ukraine. I think if we follow, I actually, I mean, I be honest and tell you, I don't know that there when there would be a formal update. I'll tell you that in conversations with the president, what he has in mind in terms of how quickly they would like to get to a cashless society is a really aggressive timeline. I think it really was 2 years,
Hmm.
which I think is hard for any country to be able to do that. So I don't have a timeline for us to be able to make any announcements. I just know that he's very vocal about what he wants to be able to get done. And I think that it's been pretty awesome to see how quickly that government has worked to be able to create like a focus on digital assets, create a focus on investment in digital assets in their country. So I would imagine they'll stay pretty tight to their own timeline.
Nice, 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 nice. And final thing on CBDCs, how far do you think are we until we see a CBDC
Mm.
actually be issued on Stellar or really any network?
Gosh, I think if you had asked me last year, I would have told you that we would have seen something this year. I think there was so much attention. I didn't know if it was going to be operational, but I thought we would have seen something be issued as a test case. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but I do think that something will be issued, even if it's just a test, ability to test it will be issued next year. And I would say probably right after the first half of the year. I'm not saying on Stellar. I just see that there's so much connection and focus on CBDCs. And I do think that we'll see something out there coming relatively quickly. And then we have to test it to see how that kind of thing works, right? I think
Hmm.
that CBDCs are something that's super valuable for the ecosystem at large. I think that it could be this public to private partnership if you leverage the if you issue these assets from the government and then you leverage what are kind of like the constituent banks today, but you leverage the developers that are out there already creating these stable coins and you allow them to be able to leverage the CBDC. I think you can actually get them to market faster than if you presuppose that a a bank, a central bank is going to have a one-to-one relationship with the consumer, which I think most don't, and I think would be very hard to see. So it depends on how they build them. I want them to build them leveraging the public to private relationship. I think that's the way to actually make this happen faster, and I think it's the way to make so that it's leveraging the technology instead of ending up more siloed again. Because once you have different central banks issuing different types of technology and they keep it closed, it's going to be hard because then we're going to get back to where we are essentially. Just 20 years from now, it'll be antiquated software.
Right, right, right. It's and it's great because you look at this whole conversation of stable coins and central bank digital currencies, and as you mentioned, whether or not Stellar is the one that's actually picked, it's clear that Stellar is right there at the table at every single major seat that you can be at. In addition to that, the other highly regulated area is securities, and we've seen a lot of serious attention being given to that over the past couple years. I noticed a lot of headway. For instance, Franklin Templeton has made a lot of advances. I've seen some documents even as early as a couple months ago, advancing their U.S. government fund, government money fund on Stellar.
Money
Um,
market fund, yeah.
yeah, Vonovia, a European real estate group, issued 20 million euro bond on Stellar, using Stellar to issue security tokens. And then you have Securrency, who I see here is working on a short-term treasury funds. Um, while I know you're not able to speak on these projects directly, a question a lot of people I know have is why Stellar? Like, once
Mm.
again, I can't think of another public chain that is seeing this level of serious activity. I just love to see to get a grasp of
Yeah.
what you're seeing that's attracting all of this.
I think that the why stellar part has something to do with the ecosystem and the depth of the ecosystem, but it also has to do with the fact that it's really easy to be able to build on Stellar and that we're also not agnostic to just building on Stellar. So, like, the fact of the matter is, Securrency, who I think they're just a phenomenal team, incredibly strong developers and very creative, they build on other networks as well. And so I think from my standpoint, there is value to that because there you take some of the best of each of the networks. And so I think that since we're not like we don't demand that you only build on us, we actually recognize that there's value to be thinking about what you can take from others and then maybe bring to Stellar is an important part of it. And so I think that there's part of that. I also think that the what we hear a lot about, and again, I think part of the need is to ask these folks why they do it. But I think that we hear that having a really awesome foundation of these anchors that exist all over the world and having that laid out already really brings them brings a lot of interest to these players who want to think globally in that way. So I think the securitized assets piece and the way that we're focusing on that some of these developers are focused on security tokens is really interesting. And I think it's going to bring a lot more attention from even other developers out there in the ecosystem, the more players that come to the network like that. And I expect that there will be more.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree. Let's talk, I guess, further down the road on some of these major partnerships over the past year that we've been hearing about. And I've been excited just to ask your feedback on them. So Stellar participated. You guys have participated in 2 rounds of investment with Abra. Yet we don't really know exactly what's going on there. Is there anything that you can share? I mean, once again, I know that you guys don't move by accident. So give us some insight here if you can on this Abra deal.
Well, what I can tell you is that we consistently work with all of the different folks that we've invested with, and we make sure that they understand that part of our, just to get back to the genesis of the enterprise fund, the enterprise fund, the way I look at it, it has 2 poles. One pole is whatever entity that we invest in has to be able to bring value to Stellar as the network. Then the second pole is has to be able to help create network effects within the ecosystem. And so all of our investments fall within those poles. We are
Okay.
it is very important to us that we stay right smack in the middle with respect to that. It's one of the things that that I love about how we can make investments, because there are easy things we can say no to. If you don't have those 2 pieces and you can't articulate them clearly, this is another one of those things like no square peg round hole thing. It needs to be like really clear that you fall within theirs. And Abra did, and Abra still does. So I can't speak specifically to what they're doing. It takes time sometimes when you're working with governments and when you're trying to get things to happen. So that I think that Abra has been doing and the growth that Abra has been achieving is really phenomenal. And I'm excited to be able to get to the place where they're actually building more on the network. We spend time with them. We also get feedback from them on the things that they would like to see on the network. But I'm confident that within those 2 poles, you'll be able to see the work that they've done. I'm hoping soon.
I'm reading between the lines on there. They're stay within those polls and working with governments. I like all that language right there. I'm gonna run with that one. Okay, folks, we got it. AirTM. So this year, Stellar invested $15 million to boost financial services in Latin America. Really excited about AirTM, actually. I think that was a great partnership. How did this come about, and what can we expect?
You know what's funny is Ruben and his co-founders are some of the first folks that I met in the they weren't yet in the ecosystem, but when I first started at SDF, we had been talking to AirTM. We liked what they were doing. This is in 2019. Wow. In the early days, we liked what they were doing. We saw that there could be a potential collaboration eventually. And so we stayed in contact over the last several years. And so what they're doing with respect to the last mile is transformational, I think, for the ecosystem. And I think that, in order to replicate that and to make that grow and to see users all over the world be able to leverage that kind of last mile connectivity is really important. And I think that that's what AirTM has in mind. I'm excited because they're already really focused on working and integrating with Stellar, and they've been like a really awesome ecosystem partner. And so I think that the team there is doing a pretty great amount of work to be able to make to bring their accounts and to bring their app onto the network. And so it's just kind of fun to see this happen, especially given that I saw their growth from the early days from 2019 till this year when we actually, finally decided this is the right time. Again, timing is everything, and it needs to be the right time for the company in as much as it needs to be the right time for the enterprise fund and for Stellar to be able to make those kind of investments. And so we saw that there. So it's a pretty cool team, a lot of really great work. I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see what it looks like 2 years out. It's going to be fun.
Wow. Well, if you're excited, I'm excited. I'll say that. Let's talk about Tala. Now, Tala is actually one of my favorites. Not saying that anyone's not more favorite, but I just like the story behind Tala. Researching and reading and learning about the CEO. You guys invested over $40 million. This was the largest investment, at least I believe so. Yes. And allows users to be able to borrow, spend, save, invest, and send, receive entirely using Stellar assets, which Stellar assets in itself was very interesting to me, and stable coins like Stellar USDC. What can you share about this exciting partnership? Because this was obviously something that you guys believe strongly fit between those two poles that you mentioned. So, yeah,
Yeah.
what can you share?
So I think that Shivani and I have known Shivani for a while. I think that I have seen some of the most exciting use cases that I see are those that really touch consumers very deeply to what they need. And I think if you think about lending, when people are taking and they need to borrow $100 to be able to do something for their family or to improve something in their business, and they can do that using Tala, for example, that goes to the core of people's needs and like the human connectivity of what we're really trying to solve for is like to bring these folks into the more traditional financial system. And so Tala has done that for a long time in terms of what they've offered. And so I saw the when I look at what Tala is doing on lending, I also, by the way, feel the same way about payroll. That's another area that I think that people could
Yeah.
we could touch people, and that use case is a really awesome use case to have on Stellar. But when I think about what Tala is doing,
I just took notes, by the way. I'm taking notes on that payroll. Okay, I got you. Go ahead.
I think payrolls are really cool. I think that there are a lot. If you think about and also like paying gig workers, like those kinds of things are like really interesting use cases for Stellar. So you see all of these different use cases, and Tala fell right there smack in the middle of that one when you think about lending and when it actually is really getting to that human experience, that human need, but also it's bringing people into the financial system and allowing them to build credit. It might not be the
Mm-hmm.
formal way that you build credit, but it's allowing them to build credit so that they can then take other loans. And that the more they pay it back, the more credit that they build. So this is a really
Mm-hmm.
important way to be able to really allow people to get to financial independence and financial stability. So that's what I love Tala for. In addition to, I love the fact that, I love the Shivani story and like the co-founders and how they brought Tala to the market and how long they've been in market. It's the latest stage. So they're a Series E, and that was the investment that we came into. It's the latest stage investment that we've done. But we also saw that there was real value in terms of moving some of the features that Tala has onto Stellar and to be able to leverage the speed, the low cost, the security, the innovation opportunities to be able to leverage those things on Stellar. So again, you don't invest in an entity that is that it's going to be the square peg round hole to make it fit on the network. You invest in an entity where that use case makes a ton of sense to be able to bring to the network because it helps to solve problems for their users and also solves a lot of interesting opportunities for the ecosystem. So that's what Tala, I think, does for us.
That's exciting. And it's one thing that was became real evident to me, it just in communicating with people across the globe through Stellar, is here in the States we take credit for granted. I mean, we take it
Oh,
for. I
absolutely.
mean, we overdose on credit. I mean, anybody can get credit at any time, almost instantly. But it really, I mean, there's. I was shocked. I mean, even for sound investments, it is difficult to get even small amounts of credit. So it's a huge market. You're absolutely right. I'm excited as well to see how that goes. And when I read Stellar Assets, I got excited about it. So are we talking about perhaps being able to leverage any asset? I mean, like, I don't know, a share of stock or a share of, any sort of asset
Well,
or
I think that's the opportunity. I think what Tala
right.
gets to decide is what they feel like is the best for their users, but the opportunity is certainly any Stellar asset. And so I think again, like you need to think about which use cases are going to help to solve the problems that their users have. But
Hmm.
I mean, it's open to it all. That's the beauty, though, right? When you stellarize
Right.
and you have a wallet that is Stellar enabled, you can take advantage of all these different assets. And so I think it just depends on the developers themselves and so what the needs that they want to be able to solve for their end users, leveraging which Stellar assets are going to be most interesting. I for sure would say that the stablecoins in of the variety of different markets are very interesting to a player like Tala.
Everybody listening, please go hashtag Stellarize. I like it. Let's run with it. I like that one a lot. We're gonna stellarize things from now on. All right, everybody. Everybody, start hashtagging, please. Let's go on to MoneyGram. I mean, that's the biggest announcement. That's what everyone wants to hear about. Is one of the biggest announcements. You know, since when you look at the crypto world over the last couple years, let's just be honest. This has got to be the biggest real world partnership that we've seen in this space. I mean, no exaggeration. We're talking about a partnership that was announced that said that would enable digital wallets connected to Stellar. I'm reading exactly here. To access MoneyGram's global retail platform, providing a bridge between digital assets and local currencies for consumers. I mean, this is huge. We touched on it a little bit earlier. You said this has always been part of the pieces. Let's go back to it I guess how did this partnership actually come together to begin with?
Well, so I've known Alex for a while. Jed and I both have, and so Alex Holmes, who's the CEO of and chairman of MoneyGram, and so I think it's just one of those things where you again focus on the use case. If you try to go to any company and say that you're going to solve their problems for them using blockchain, you better damn well know what problems you're talking about. And so we actually were very clear. It wasn't just solving a problem for MoneyGram, it was also solving a problem for blockchain. And so really marrying those two. And so I think it's a little bit of the story where a lot of people think that blockchain solves everything and doesn't, and it can be independent of all of these financial infrastructures that have been built out there, but that's just not true. Like what we really need are on and off ramps. And what we really need is the ability to be able to convert fiat simply, to convert fiat cheaply, and to make it so that it can get into these digital asset streams so that everyone can leverage it. And to do it in a way that's not going to take a lot of time for any one entity to be able to become a part of it. So I'm going to use that term again because we do talk about it like this. Any wallet that is Stellar enabled or Stellarized, it can easily connect now to the infrastructure because we've built this adapter collectively between us, MoneyGram and Stellar. We built this adapter to be able to, I like to think about as making the languages that talk to one another. So you have MoneyGram's language and then you have the Stellar language, and now they can get in this adapter and they can speak the same language so that they can actually make things happen. So it really is that simple. And I'm hopeful that soon we'll be able to demonstrate, to show that a demo of how the product works, because it's really fun and it's so simple. Like you can, really the goal is to be able to, you have a Stellar wallet and you want to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to take this, $100 of whatever asset you have and you want to convert it. You convert it into USDC and then you send it to yourself at a MoneyGram location and you go pick it up. That's just really important and so awesome to be able to make happen, right? But I almost think that the on-ramp part is something that is very special, because the on-ramp piece of it is that not everyone could, if you didn't have credit cards or you didn't have a bank account, you couldn't always get on very simply to this. But with going into a MoneyGram agent location, which they have 435,000 all over the world, and being able to on-ramp with your local currency, MoneyGram does some things exceptionally well. And what they do very well is they have money all over the world. They've actually created this really awesome network where they have different currencies all over the world that they can then collect. They can take the currency from the person in that local, in the local agency where they are, and then they could now convert that using Circle into USDC, and it goes right into the wallet. It's so simple that it makes it so that it might not seem sexy, because it's just this really like table stakes things that we need. And that's why I think it is so transformational. I think that this is one of the things that I have been wanting to be able to complete, honestly, for the last year or so. And to be able to make this come together, I think we were ready for it. We needed to get a few things in play to make happen. We needed to get USDC, a nice, strong stable coin to be able to make it come together. And we needed to be able to have already these local, this foundational piece of all these anchors out there that eventually others can leverage to be able to make this come together. But it's really exciting to me. I'm also just super impressed with how quickly the MoneyGram team is working, and that they're excited about this too. I think that this, again, I think it's really important, and I don't want to undercut this. This is as much of an advantage for the Stellar network and those developers on the Stellar network as it is for MoneyGram. So we are both sharing in the value that we're creating here, because this on and off ramp is so important. And then bringing MoneyGram the opportunity to be able to participate with these users that they might not have had the ability to do, and to expand their network is also really important. So I always say this, and I think this is one of the most important things for deals to really work and for relationships to really grow. You need to have value transferred on both sides, because if you don't, one person's going to be unhappy.
Right.
And here, I feel like we have both parties and both sides of this equation, the Stellar ecosystem and MoneyGram, getting something of value from this relationship.
It definitely seems that way. I mean, first of all, one of my questions in my head was how this is going to work, and so you've answered that by this adapter. So I can't wait to see the demo of that. But when I was really looking into MoneyGram, and this is one benefit to them is that MoneyGram got into the four minds of a lot of people in the digital community. Is like you said, there's tons of locations. They're available. Talk about on ramps. They got partnerships with Walmart, CVS's, all over the U.S. and Puerto Rico, which is huge. But then they also have a lot of these other services. I mean, you can pay healthcare through MoneyGram. You can pay bills. You can type in, like, I think it's, I don't know, over 13,000 companies. I mean, I don't know if is there any thoughts of just being an on ramp or possibilities of accessing some of these other services that they're offering. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware. Just thought I'll ask you that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think that part of it for us is that we really want to get the foundational pieces in play. I think that we've had just a really I really enjoyed the conversations and the depth at which we've gone with this partnership and really trying to make it come together really well for the ecosystem and for MoneyGram. And so I want to get this part done. I want to get this part operational. I want to get it all out there. And then I think that sort of the sky's the limit on what we can all do together. That is the value of creating network effects in the ecosystem, right? Like once you
Mm-hmm.
bring a player to the ecosystem, the tremendous amount of opportunity that exists within this ecosystem for not just the players that are already there, but for the new folks that are coming into it is pretty phenomenal. And so that's what I want us to
Absolutely.
be able to focus on.
Absolutely. Because I mean, I tell you, my entrepreneur brain start just going like, I can just only imagine now the access now that if you are looking to develop anywhere, to have a wallet on Stellar and to have access to that network of on and off ramps, it changes your business model. Trust me, I am positive that that is not being overlooked by so many out there. So, is there any? I know you said that you can't wait to do it. I know one of the questions would be: is there any sort of expected date for a full rollout? I know one time it was mentioned the fourth quarter of this year. How are we looking?
We're definitely gonna have more information out by the fourth quarter of this year. So I think that we're in the fourth quarter. So I
Yeah.
think we'll have more information that's coming out, and hopefully we'll be able to provide to be able to show the experience this year.
Awesome, awesome. That's right. Hashtag Stellarize is already going. We got that. We got that going around. Finally, I know I catch you here a little while now. Wanted to ask you on two final things. Protocol 18. I just had Justin Rice on last week, saying it's the biggest rollout to date, introducing AMM and liquidity pools. And you know what? The first time you graced the Meridian stage in 2019, you talked about the goal of bringing liquidity and to the network as one of your top pillars every single year, and it looks like we finally have this. So why is it that you feel this protocol update is so important? And congratulations. I know it's you will never take full credit, but I mean it just really shows what you've kind of set up with the Seller Development Foundation as focuses and really representing what many in the community have been wanting to have this come to a reality. So this is really huge. What are your thoughts on Protocol 18 and the introduction of AMM's liquidity pools?
Yeah, so remember I talked earlier about the thing that's really important to remember is why is liquidity so important to the network? And liquidity is important because it allows all of these different outcomes for payments to be able to be utilized and for you to know that when you're sending this and you're receiving this, you're going to be able to give and take on each side. That's why liquidity is so crucial, and that's why we've always focused on it. I think we've done so much research on how to be able to, and taken a lot of steps to improve liquidity on the network, even in the DEX themselves. The AMM part, the reason why I love Protocol 18 has a lot to do with the outcome, and hopefully that on November 4th, the vote happens, or November 3rd, the vote happens. I think it happens at 15 UTC, and it gets everybody upgrades, and so the system moves forward, and we see the AMMs live on the 4th. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But so I love that. But the reason why I think that this is so cool is because it shows how awesome a truly an ecosystem with true depth works. because while we were actually working on how we can develop and create and build more liquidity into the network, so were others. And so it really came together from these proposals that came from outside SDF, and then we had some inside SDF that we were able to like merge to be able to benefit from one another. So I love 18 because of how hard the teams have worked on it and because of what ultimately I think it's going to do for the network. But I also love it because it definitely shows what a decentralized and open network actually brings, is that we listen to one another, we provide feedback, we engage, we develop, and that really it's all about making sure that we're delivering the value that we need to deliver to the ecosystem as a whole collectively, like all of us, and like showing that
Right.
kind of contribution. Those of you that actually followed the Protocol 18, the developments, through the open, when you can see the protocol meetings, it was fun. It was fun to
Yeah.
watch. There was give and take. There was back and forth. There was a lot that happened on
A
the
lot of a
channel
lot of
and the
passion.
emails
A
as
lot of
well.
passion.
Yeah, tons of
Yeah.
passion, which is always really good. So, and sometimes you have to really take it in and like think about what it's going to do. So I think Protocol 18 is remarkable. I'm so proud to work with folks internally that worked on it and that we were able to get to this so quickly. And I'm so proud of how well we worked with the ecosystem to be able to bring this together. So it's also one of the coolest ways to develop this is that we're starting, and maybe Justin touched on this a bit, but I love that when we are actually working with the ecosystem, even prior to launch, to make sure that everyone's aware that this is happening, because it's all about what you guys want to be able to
Hmm.
build, right? Like we don't get to decide, like you guys actually collectively get to decide in the ecosystem what is the right thing to build. We can throw ideas out there, but I just love how this all came together. So it's one of my favorite parts about working at an open a company that's focused on open source and really thinking about it as a project, is when you get to bring all of this together. So many things great about Protocol 18, and I can't wait to see this whole thing go live in the event that the ecosystem decides it's the right thing. And I'm just really excited to see this back and forth with respect to these folks that are already developing the options for liquidity pools and all of that. I just think it's going to be awesome. So
It's
I'm
gonna be
excited
it's
to
gonna
see
be
even
real
more
awesome.
innovation there. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's going to be incredible. One last thing, you mentioned open source and the growth, just real highlight. I saw that IBM was talking once again about Stellar, and really taking the technology and making it open source. And you've always been a proponent of open source technology. So, I mean, just incredible to see the continued growth in ecosystem. So shout out to everything that's going on there.
Yeah,
You
that was
have
fun. I was really happy to see that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was great. I'm not sure if people saw that, but definitely go check it out. They're definitely spreading out the worldwide project, and I'm excited to see how that evolves over time. I know we got to wrap things up. Meridian is right around the corner. What can we expect at Meridian?
Well, I think that this one's so it's the 17th and 18th of November, which is just right around the corner,
Right
which is
around the
crazy to
corner.
me. But I think that really we want to showcase the ecosystem, and this is going to be a smaller event than we had historically because we're hoping to be able to have, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I will. We really want to be able to have an in-person event next year and early part of next year if we can. So coronavirus and
Yay.
all these things allowing. So we made it a little bit smaller this year than we had historically, with the hopes that we can get to do that. So everybody cross your fingers for the health of the world so that we can actually make this all come together and see, be together as an ecosystem in person, which I think is just a really awesome way to be able to celebrate. So we're going to focus on what the ecosystem is developing. You'll certainly hear updates from SDF, but I think about Meridian as really the ecosystem's opportunity to be able to share and to engage, which is why I think it's so great to be able to do it in person. But hey, man, the virtual ones work too. I think last year was super successful. And
Hmm.
so we're really going to focus on sharing updates about all the developments that have happened since last year within the ecosystem. And also, certainly, I probably shouldn't promise this, but I am hopeful. We right now are in our planning stage for next year for 2022. And so we're going to really focus on what 2022 is going to look like for SDF. And assuming that we get it all pulled together, which I use Meridian as my peg to be able to do that, I want to be able to present at least our plan, big picture for 2022 and what we see at the SDF and what we'll be focused on as well.
Can't wait, can't wait. The last time we chatted, which was last year, a lot has happened. And pretty much I can go back through that list you put together, and I think you checked off everything plus a
That
ton of
is the goal.
surprises. So I cannot wait to learn what you guys have planned for 2022. Denelle, Dixon, really want to say thank you for taking the time for hopping on this small little show and talking to the community directly. I know so many appreciate what you're doing and appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us. So thank you so much for joining.
Of course, I just want to make it clear that we wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you guys for being a part of our ecosystem and being supportive of the work that we do. And you can tell us when we're right. You can also tell us when we're wrong. So we're open to both. So thank you. And it was a pleasure being here, Sam. Nice to see you again.
Awesome. Everybody, stay tuned. We are gonna wrap this up. Thank you for checking in. More shows to come this month. Everybody say goodbye to Denelle. Denelle, hang out for a couple seconds, and I'll talk to everybody later. Thank you. Take care.